On a dusty Louisiana road in 1934, a Ford sedan rolled to a stop. Seconds later, it was obliterated by 130 bullets. Inside, two of America's most wanted criminals, Bonnie and Clyde. But this isn't just another tale of outlaws. This is the story of a car they died in. It wasn't a luxury car. It wasn't military grade. It was a 1934 Ford Fordor Deluxe, sleek, unassuming, and engineered to be fast. Really fast. And that one detail changed everything. Because for Bonnie and Clyde, this wasn't just transportation. It was survival. It was escape. It was their final weapon. So why this car? Why did Clyde Barrow, known for his brutal precision and obvious planning, risk everything to steal this exact model? Why did he write a letter to Henry Ford himself, praising it as the dandy car? And how did this everyday family sedan become the most infamous death car in American history? We're about to find out. In this video, we're peeling back the layers of a machine that defined a generation of automotive innovation and became soaked in the blood of legends. We'll explore what made the 1934 Ford Fordor Deluxe such a marvel of its time and how it ended up as a mangled centerpiece of the most violent ambushes in American law enforcement history. You'll learn how it was engineered with forward-thinking features like a powerful V8 engine and an aerodynamic body and safety glass windows. Details that were revolutionary in the 1930s. But you'll also learn how the same power helped the Barrow gang stay one step ahead of the law until it didn't. Because this story isn't just chrome, horsepower, and pinstriping, it's a collision of technology and notoriety. It's how the design choices of a car company intended to boost sales during the Great Depression ended up empowering a deadly cross-country rampage. And just wait until you hear how law enforcement reacted when they found out Clyde was behind the wheel of a V8. This story is chilling, it's fascinating, and the part that stunned even seasoned lawmen, they didn't just fear Bonnie and Clyde, they feared the car they were driving. The machine that moved history. In the early 1930s, Ford needed a miracle. The Great Depression was strangling car sales, and Chevrolet had just overtaken them in market share. That's when Henry Ford doubled down on the radical idea, putting a powerful V8 engine into an affordable family car. The result? The 1934 Ford Fordor Deluxe. This car was part of Ford's Model 40 line and was more than just a pretty face. It came equipped with a flathead V8, 221 cubic inches, cast in a single block, producing around 85 horsepower and 150 foot-pounds of torque. Those numbers may sound tame today, but in 1934, it was revolutionary. For the average American family, it meant power they'd never had access to before. For people like Clyde Barrow, it meant outrunning almost anything the police could throw at him. The engine was paired with a 3-speed manual transmission and sat on a frame with a 112-inch wheelbase. Lightweight, responsive, and ideal for speed. Combined with newly upgraded dual downshift Stromberg carburetor, the Ford V8 didn't just run, it roared. But Ford didn't stop at power. They introduced a refined body style that turned heads, a sleek V-shaped grille, elegant straight hood louvers, and an iconic V8 emblem dead center like a badge of honor. Cowl lamps and chrome horns on the deluxe model added class to all that muscle. Under all that design was a chassis that offered both performance and resilience. A solid axle suspension system supported by transverse leaf springs gave it agile handling even on the roughest roads. And at just under 2,400 pounds, it had a power-to-weight ratio that made it a beast on back roads. It was too safe, at least by 1930 standards. Ford made safety glass standard in all windows, reducing the risk of injury from shattered glass in a crash. The interior was all comfort and class. Broad cloth or leather seats, wood grain trim, and even a hot water heater for winter drives. So, when Clyde saw one of these parked and unattended, it wasn't just a target, it was a ticket to freedom. And here's where things get dark. Law enforcement across the country began circulating warnings, not about Clyde Barrow, not even about Bonnie Parker, but about the Ford V8. Clyde Barrow wasn't just a criminal, he was a strategist behind the wheel. And his favorite tool? A stolen Ford V8. He didn't choose it because it looked nice. He chose it because it worked. Clyde knew this car could outrun anything law enforcement had at the time. In the 1930s, most police departments were still using underpower sedans. The Ford V8 turned every chase into a losing game for them. He became so obsessed with the machine that he reportedly wrote a letter, on the run no less, directly to Henry Ford. The letter received by Ford Motor Company in April 1934 read, "While I still have breath in my lungs, I will tell you, what a dandy car you make. I have drove Fords exclusively when I get away with one. For sustained speed and freedom from trouble, the Ford got every other car skinned. What a fine car you got in the V8. It was part of fan mail, part battlefield report. Whether Clyde truly wrote it or not, some experts still debate the handwriting. One thing was certain, his loyalty to the Ford V8 was real. He and Bonnie used it to escape countless police traps. They knew the acceleration was their best ally. No time to reload, no problem. Just floor it." But it wasn't just the engine. The Deluxe model's interior gave them rare comfort while constantly on the move. Broadcloth seats, a hot water heater, and safety glass for protection. It was, in a twisted way, the perfect mobile hideout. Still, every ride was a gamble. One wrong turn, one stalled engine, and it was all over. And then came April 29, 1934. In Topeka, Kansas, Clyde stole a nearly brand new Fordor Deluxe from a couple named Ruth and Jesse Warren. Cordoba gray, blood red pinstripe, leather trim. Back then, the Ford cost nearly $1,000, a serious chunk of change during the Great Depression. People skipping meals, Clyde stole what most families dreamed of affording. The Warrens had owned it for only a few weeks. Clyde had it for 28 days, and it would become his final car. In that short stretch of time, Clyde drove the V8 across Louisiana, Texas, adding over 2,500 miles to the odometer. But he wasn't just running anymore. He was heading straight for an ambush. And the Ford he trusted would soon become the most photographed crime scene in America. Final ride. By May 1934, the end was near. Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker had eluded capture for 2 years, carving a path of robberies and shootouts across the Midwest. But their luck and their tires were running thin. After stealing the Cordoba gray Fordor Deluxe from the Warrens, Clyde knew the car's speed was his best chance. They moved fast, often sleeping in the back seat, with weapons hidden beneath blankets. The Ford was now more than a getaway vehicle. It was a rolling war room, a lifeline, a last hope. But the law had caught up in other ways. Texas Ranger Frank Hammer, a relentless tracker with a reputation for ambush tactics, had been hired to end the chase. With help from a betrayed accomplice, the lawman learned Bonnie and Clyde would be returning to Bineville Parish, Louisiana. On May 23, 1934, they set the trap. 6 officers, Hammer included, waited hidden along a narrow back road near the town of Sales. They knew Clyde couldn't resist helping someone in need, so they used bait. The father of an informant parked roadside as if his truck had broken down. At 9 a.m., Clyde's Ford came into view. He slowed, and in that instant, before he could reach for his weapon, the woods erupted in gunfire. Rifles, shotguns, pistols, even Browning automatic rifles, military-grade firepower. The officers didn't give them a chance. No surrender, no warning. Clyde was dead before his foot left the gas pedal. A bullet hit him square in the head. Bonnie screamed, then fell. In the last 20 seconds, the Ford shredded by over 130 rounds. The car's once pristine body was torn open like paper glass exploded. Metal curled, blood soaked the leather seats. When it stopped, there was silence. But the horror was just beginning. Locals, having heard the gunfire from miles away, rushed to the scene. They found the Ford riddled with holes, and inside, the bodies of America's most notorious outlaws. And then they looted it. People clipped Bonnie's hair, tried to steal Clyde's trigger finger. One man even carved a piece of the bloody upholstery as a souvenir. The Ford wasn't just a car anymore. It was a crime scene, a spectacle, a legend. And its story wasn't over yet. After the smoke cleared, the car was hauled, bullet holes, bloodstains and all, to Arcadia, Louisiana. Bonnie and Clyde's bodies were still inside. But this wasn't the end of the car's story. The 1934 Ford Fordor Deluxe that had carried them across state lines, through police traps, and finally into history, was now property of the Bineville Parish Sheriff, or so he thought. The real owner, Ruth Warren, the woman Clyde had stolen it from, wanted it back. She paid nearly $835 for the car, a massive sum at the time. But when she asked for it, the sheriff reportedly demanded $15,000, not as compensation, but as ransom. A federal judge didn't agree. Ruth got her car back, though not in the condition she remembered. The Ford was torn apart, peppered with over 100 bullet holes, its seats stained and shredded. She never drove it again. Instead, she leased it to a traveling show. People lined up to see it, to stare at the seat where Clyde had died, to put their hands on the door where bullet holes punched through steel. Eventually, she sold it to a carnival promoter. Over the years, it toured the country like a sideshow act. In some places, you could sit in the blood-stained back seat for $1. In others, people tried to grab pieces of it like relics. Fake versions began popping up. Relics, movie props, copycats, but only one had the real scars. Only one had the real serial number, the history, the legend burned into its frame. And today, it sits on display. You can find it at the Prim Valley Resort and Casino in Nevada. The once luxurious Cordoba gray paint is faded. The body looks like Swiss cheese. The bullet-riddled shirt Clyde died in hangs beside it. Rust clings to the fenders. The aura of tragedy hasn't faded, it's grown. Visitors walk up and stare at what's left. They don't just see a car, they see a story, a tragedy, a legend on 4 wheels. The 1934 Ford Fordor Deluxe didn't die that morning in Louisiana. It became immortal. And if you're ever standing in front of it, really looking, you'll feel it too. The sense that something so ordinary could become something unforgettable. Like and subscribe if you want more real stories that drive history. This is Horsepower Matrix.